Have you ever waited for someone you loved, only to realize they were never coming? I have. And the person I was waiting for wasn't a stranger. He was my son. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 68 years old, and this is the hardest story I've ever told. If you're listening to me today, I'm not asking you to judge anyone. I'm only asking you to hear my story. Because every family has two sides, and this is mine. I never imagined the little boy who once held my hand so tightly would one day let it go without looking back. My son, Ryan Brooks, was my whole world. After my husband, Thomas Brooks, passed away from cancer, Ryan and I only had each other. Ryan was just 10 years old when we stood together at his father's funeral. I remember holding his small hand while he cried and asked me, "Mom, are we going to be okay?" I knelt down, wiped the tears from his face, and held him close. "As long as we're together, we'll always be okay," I whispered. At that moment, I believed those words with all my heart. Life wasn't easy after Thomas died. Money was always tight. Some months, I wasn't sure how I was going to pay every bill. But somehow, we always made it through. I worked full-time as a receptionist at a medical clinic. After work, I'd hurry home to cook dinner, help Ryan with his homework, wash clothes, and make sure he never felt alone. Some nights, after Ryan had fallen asleep, I'd sit alone at the kitchen table with a stack of unpaid bills. I'd stare at the numbers, wondering how I was going to make everything work. Then I'd wipe away my tears before going to bed. I never wanted Ryan to see me worried. He deserved a happy childhood, not the weight of my problems. As the years passed, Ryan grew into a kind and respectful young man. He worked hard in school, stayed out of trouble, and always made me proud. Whenever someone complimented him, my heart filled with joy. I knew his father would have been proud of the man he was becoming. When Ryan graduated from college, I cried through almost the entire ceremony. Those weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. Every late night, every extra shift, and every sacrifice had been worth it. A few years later, Ryan called me one evening. The excitement in his voice made me smile the moment I answered the phone. "Mom, I met someone." I laughed. "Well, don't keep me waiting. Tell me everything." Her name was Vanessa. She was smart, confident, and worked as a marketing executive in Chicago. Ryan couldn't stop talking about her. Listening to him laugh made me happier than I had been in years. The first time I met Vanessa, she greeted me with a warm smile and a polite hug. During dinner, she spent much of the evening glancing at her phone whenever it buzzed. I told myself she was probably busy. After all, we had only just met. She was kind to me, and I wanted to believe we would grow closer with time. A few months later, Ryan proposed to her. He called me the moment she said yes. "Mom," she accepted. I could hear the happiness in his voice. "I'm so happy for you, sweetheart," I told him. And I truly meant it. Their wedding was beautiful. As Ryan stood at the altar, I looked up for just a moment and quietly whispered, "Thomas, our boy made it." For a second, I could almost imagine my husband smiling down on us. After the honeymoon, Ryan and Vanessa bought a beautiful home about 40 minutes away. I thought we'd see each other every weekend. For a while, we did. Sunday dinners became our little tradition. I'd spend the afternoon cooking Ryan's favorite meals, and we'd sit around the table laughing about old memories. Those Sundays became the happiest part of my week. But slowly, things began to change. Ryan started canceling our dinners. "Sorry, Mom. We're busy this weekend." The following Sunday brought another excuse. Vanessa already made plans. Then another. "Maybe next week." The weeks turned into months. Phone calls became shorter. Text messages replaced conversations. Sometimes I'd send Ryan a simple message in the morning. "Hope you're having a great day. Love you." Hours would pass before I received a reply. Sometimes I didn't hear back until the next day. Sometimes I didn't hear back at all. I kept telling myself not to take it personally. He was married now. He had a career. Life gets busy. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Then my 68th birthday arrived. For the first time in years, I felt excited. Ryan had always celebrated my birthday with me. I spent the entire afternoon making his favorite pot roast, fresh mashed potatoes, homemade biscuits, and the apple pie he loved as a little boy. I even baked my own birthday cake. Then I set the dining table. One chair for me. One for Ryan. One for Vanessa. Everything was ready. 5 o'clock came. Then 6. Then 7. Every time headlights passed my house, I looked out the window, hoping it was them. Finally, my phone buzzed. It was Ryan. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm so sorry. Vanessa made dinner reservations tonight, and I completely lost track of time. We'll celebrate another day. I stared at the message for several seconds. The food had gone cold. The candles had burned all the way down. The room had become so quiet that I could hear the old clock ticking on the kitchen wall. I looked at the 2 empty chairs across the table and quietly whispered, "Maybe next year." That night, as I wrapped the untouched food and placed it in the refrigerator, one question wouldn't leave my mind. Had my son really forgotten my birthday, or had someone else become more important than the mother who had always been there for him? I had no idea that unanswered question was about to change everything. And before long, I would be forced to make a choice no mother ever wants to make. After my birthday, I tried not to think about it. I told myself Ryan was busy. He had a demanding job. He was building a life with his wife. That's what married couples do. At least, that's what I kept repeating every time I felt my heart sink. A week later, I called him. The phone rang several times before he answered. "Hi, Mom. Is everything okay?" His voice sounded rushed. "Everything's fine," I said with a smile, even though he couldn't see it. "I just wanted to hear your voice." There was a short silence. Then he said, "I'm actually heading into a meeting. Can I call you later?" "Of course," I replied. "Love you." "Love you too, Mom." The call ended. I looked at my phone for a long moment. He never called back. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The silence between us kept growing. One Saturday morning, I decided to surprise Ryan and Vanessa with a homemade lasagna. Ryan had loved my lasagna since he was a little boy. Whenever he had a bad day, I'd make it for him, and somehow everything seemed better. As I drove to their house, I kept smiling. I imagined Ryan opening the door and saying, "Mom, you didn't have to do this." Instead, when Vanessa opened the door, her smile disappeared the moment she saw me. "Oh, hello, Eleanor," she said politely. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," I said, holding up the casserole dish. I made Ryan's favorite lasagna. She glanced over her shoulder before opening the door just a little wider. "Ryan's upstairs working." "That's okay," I said with a smile. "I only wanted to drop this off." Before I could step inside, she gently blocked the doorway. "This really isn't a good time." For a second, I wasn't sure what to say. Then Ryan appeared behind her. "Mom?" His face showed surprise. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, trying not to sound disappointed. "I made lasagna." He smiled. "Thanks, Mom. That was really thoughtful." For a moment, I thought he might invite me in. Instead, he took the dish from my hands. "We've got a few things going on today. Maybe we'll see you next week." I nodded. "Of course." As I walked back to my car, I glanced toward the front window. Ryan and Vanessa were already walking back into the house. The front door closed behind them. I sat in my car for several minutes before turning the key. The passenger seat beside me felt strangely empty. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had visited my son's home. I felt like I had stopped by a stranger's house. A few weeks later, Ryan called. "Mom, we're hosting a family barbecue next Saturday." My heart lifted. I'd love to come. For the first time in months, I felt excited. I baked my famous apple pie. I even bought a new light blue sweater because Ryan always said that color looked nice on me. When I arrived, the backyard was full of people. Friends. Neighbors. Coworkers. Children running across the lawn. Ryan hugged me. "I'm glad you came." Those 5 words meant more to me than he could ever imagine. For a while, everything felt almost normal again. Then I overheard something that stopped me in my tracks. One of Vanessa's friends asked, "Who's the lady sitting by herself?" Before Ryan could answer, Vanessa smiled politely and said, "Oh, that's Ryan's mom." She paused for a second before adding, "She likes doing her own thing." I looked around. Every chair at the family table was filled. Mine had been placed by itself near the edge of the patio. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe I was reading too much into it. I tried to convince myself it didn't matter. But it did. More than I wanted to admit. Later that afternoon, I found Ryan carrying drinks into the kitchen. "Can we talk for a minute?" I asked. "Sure." I took a deep breath. "Have I done something to upset Vanessa?" Ryan looked surprised. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know." I forced a small smile. "It just feels like things are different now." Ryan sighed. "Mom, you're overthinking this. Vanessa doesn't have any problem with you. She's just trying to balance everything." I nodded. "Maybe you're right." But deep inside, I wasn't convinced. As I prepared to leave, I hugged Ryan goodbye. "Don't wait so long before calling me," I said with a smile. "I'll try, Mom." He smiled back. But something about that smile felt different. It wasn't the warm smile I had known all his life. It felt polite. Almost distant. That evening, I drove home alone. The house felt quieter than ever. I placed the untouched apple pie on the kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. I realized I had spent the entire afternoon surrounded by people. Yet I had never felt so alone. A few days later, my phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice sounded serious. "Mom. Vanessa and I need to talk to you about something." My heart immediately began to race. "Is everything okay?" I asked. There was a long pause. Then he quietly said, "Can you come over tomorrow?" I didn't know it then. But that conversation would change our relationship in a way neither of us could ever take back. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan's phone call. "Mom. Vanessa and I need to talk to you about something." His voice had sounded serious. I tried to convince myself it wasn't bad news. Maybe they were expecting a baby. Maybe they had bought a new home. I held on to every hopeful thought I could. On my way to their house, I stopped at a small bakery and bought Ryan's favorite chocolate chip cookies. Some habits never leave a mother's heart. When I arrived, Ryan opened the front door. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." I handed him the box of cookies. "I thought you might like these." "Thanks, Mom," he said softly. Vanessa was already sitting in the living room. She smiled politely. "Good morning, Eleanor." The house felt unusually quiet. No one offered me coffee. No one asked how I had been. Ryan sat across from me and took a deep breath. "Mom, this isn't easy to say." My heart began to race. "What's wrong?" He looked at Vanessa before meeting my eyes. "We've decided to move to Seattle." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "Seattle?" I whispered. He nodded. "Vanessa accepted a great promotion, and my company offered me a position there too. I swallowed the lump in my throat. When are you leaving? Ryan lowered his eyes. In 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That's all the time I had left with my only child. I forced a smile. Well, congratulations. This is a wonderful opportunity for both of you. Ryan looked relieved. I knew you'd understand. Of course I understood. I'd spent my entire life putting my son's happiness before my own. Why would this be any different? Over the next 3 weeks, I tried to spend as much time with Ryan as possible. Sometimes he could meet me for lunch. Most of the time, he couldn't. There were moving boxes to pack. Meetings to attend. A new life waiting for them. With every passing day, I felt my son slipping farther away. The night before they left, I invited them over for dinner. Ryan happily accepted. I spent hours preparing his favorite meal. Roast chicken. Creamy mashed potatoes. Fresh green beans. Warm homemade rolls. And, of course, apple pie. As we sat around the table, we laughed about old memories. Ryan reminded me of the time he accidentally broke the kitchen window with a baseball. We laughed until tears filled our eyes. For a little while. It felt like nothing had changed. I wished I could stop time. When dinner was over, Ryan hugged me tightly. We'll visit as often as we can, Mom. I smiled. I'll be waiting. The next morning, I stood in my driveway as their car disappeared around the corner. I kept waiting long after they were gone. Then I walked back into my quiet house. For the first time in years. It no longer felt like home. It felt empty. Weeks passed. Then months. At first, Ryan called every Sunday. Then every other Sunday. Soon, the calls came once a month. Then even less. Whenever I asked if I could visit Seattle, he always had a reason to wait. Maybe after the holidays. Work has been really busy. Let's plan something next year. But next year never seemed to arrive. One cool autumn afternoon, I was watering the flowers Thomas had planted many years earlier. As I stepped off the porch, my foot slipped. I fell hard onto the concrete. A sharp pain shot through my hip. I tried to stand. I couldn't. My neighbor, Mrs. Harris, heard me crying out and rushed over. She immediately called 911. At the hospital, the doctor gently explained that I had fractured my hip. You'll need surgery, he said. And several weeks of recovery. Lying in that hospital bed, there was only one person I wanted beside me. My son. I called Ryan. He answered after a few rings. Mom? What's wrong? I tried to keep my voice steady. I had a fall. There was a long silence. Are you okay? I'll recover, I said quietly. But I was hoping you could come home for a few days. Another long silence. Then he spoke. Mom. I don't think we can. My heart sank. Vanessa just started her new job, and work has been overwhelming for both of us. Maybe once things settle down. I closed my eyes. I understand. But the truth was, I didn't. For the first time in my life, I truly needed my son. And he wasn't there. After my surgery, Mrs. Harris became my greatest blessing. She brought groceries. She drove me to my doctor's appointments. She checked on me every evening. One afternoon, she gently asked, Does Ryan know how much you need him? I smiled, even though tears filled my eyes. I think he still sees me as the strong mother who can handle everything. Months later, I was finally walking without my cane. Life slowly began to feel normal again. Then one evening, my phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice sounded different. Quieter. Filled with regret. Mom. Can I come see you? Of course, I answered. You never have to ask. 2 days later, I opened my front door. Ryan stood there with tears in his eyes. Before I could say anything, he wrapped his arms around me. "I'm sorry, Mom." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry." I held him the same way I had held him when he was a frightened little boy. "What happened?" I whispered. He stepped back and wiped his eyes. "A few weeks ago, I called one of our old neighbors to check on you. She told me about your fall. She told me about your surgery. And she told me Mrs. Harris had been taking care of you because I wasn't there." He lowered his head. "Mom, that's when I realized something. A neighbor was taking care of the woman who spent her whole life taking care of me." Tears rolled down my cheeks. Ryan looked at me with pain I had never seen before. I spent so many years trying to build the perfect life that I forgot the person who gave me my first home. I gently placed my hand on his face. "Ryan. You're here now. That's what matters." He shook his head. "No. I missed your birthdays. I missed holidays. And when you needed me the most, I wasn't there. I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life." I smiled through my tears. "Sweetheart. A mother's heart always leaves the door open. No matter how long it takes her child to come home." Ryan cried openly. So did I. That afternoon, we sat together for hours. We talked about everything we had been too afraid to say. There was no anger. No blame. Only love. Before he left, Ryan hugged me one last time. "Mom. I'm coming home every month. No excuses." This time, I believed him. Sometimes love doesn't disappear. It simply gets buried beneath busy lives and forgotten priorities. But family isn't about being perfect. It's about finding your way back before it becomes too late. If you're blessed enough to still have your mother, call her. Visit her. Sit with her. One day, you'll wish you had just one more conversation. And trust me, no promotion, no paycheck, and no success will ever be worth missing the moments that matter most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and leave a comment below. Your support means more than you know. And if you enjoy emotional family stories, subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.